workshop. This is going to be session number 2, recording here today at the Holler studio. Theholler.org is the website that umbrellas all of the work and the resources that are made available for students through the workshop. So we really appreciate the access to the studio today, and hopefully we can get through this today in a engaging and entertaining manner, but at the same time covering the important parts that we need to cover. Okay, so the first session, hopefully everyone's been able to watch that session now, and you understand really what this new workshop is about. And the title, just so that everybody's real familiar with this title, is Leaders and Legends. That's the title of the second workshop. Leaders and Legends is a workshop that's going to be geared towards students creating pieces, choosing one of the two choices, either focusing on a certain leader that's made a difference in their community or their region, or a legend, which is another way of saying a myth or a belief, a superstition, a story, a legend that is pertaining to their region or their area. So that's the two options that students have. Now with those options, you'll be writing a story. We talked about last week the formats that you're going to be choosing from. The 3 formats you're choosing from is a picture book, a chapter book, or a graphic novel. So if you haven't watched the first session and you're watching this for the first time, and this is the first session 2, you're starting off with this, it's really important that you go back and watch that first session. Now we are experiencing a little bit of some technical difficulties early on, and but that's okay, we're working those out. The first session is going to be made available very soon on the Holler for everyone to watch and check out, okay? But everybody should be brought up to the same pace, we're on the same pace, headed towards the end goal of creating a piece that could possibly be published. That's the goal of this workshop. Students create work, you submit it after this 8 weeks is over, okay? Your works are collected, they are then sorted, they're reviewed, they're basically judged in a way. Same process of an individual submitting a work to a publisher. Their works are looked at, they're scrutinized. But I don't want this to be a stressful process for you. I want you to have fun doing this. But your work is evaluated at the end of this session, and for a good reason, because there will be certain number of students to go on to become published authors. That means your book will be made available for purchase all over the world through your own website. You will be working with folks from the Coleman College of Business to work with building a business plan for a small business model for your books, so you'll be able to sell books and you get the revenue from those books, so you make money from selling those books, and then you take that money and you put it back in your books, and you continue that process over and over and over. And I know I mentioned this student a whole lot, but a great example of that is tedhudson.net. So if you haven't went to this website yet, I encourage you to go to tedhudson.net, okay? When you go to that website, you're going to see a great example of what we're hoping to do with this workshop. This young student from Breathitt County, he's a junior. He has put together an amazing collection of his works there, his examples of his works online. His first book, Noah's Ark's, published. Every student can follow this same process, and that's our goal. All right, so Leaders and Legends is the title of this workshop. Last week we did talk about your format, which is very important, and we want everybody to make sure that we understand what that is. So what you're doing, you're choosing either a leader, someone that's made a difference in the community, or a legend, which is a myth, or a superstition, or some belief that is tied to your region. Now they have to be region specific. I really want to stress that. With legends, you have a lot of leeway to create and do different things with your work in terms of filling in the gaps. There's sometimes not a whole lot of information for legends out there. But I want everybody to remember the format. And last week when we talked about format, we talked about these 3 things. You have picture book, So that's your first option. B is chapter book. And the third is going to be graphic novel. Now we talked about what is required for these. Last week we talked about the page counts, that sort of thing. So number 1, choose leader or legend, and number 2, select your format. Now this should have been done before today, but we do have time still, so you're not too far behind if you haven't done that yet, okay? So for week 2, the title, if you're following along in our little outline, is called Words with Pictures Part 1. Now there's a reason there's 2 parts to this. After you've already selected which category you're going to work on, and you've also selected what format or type of book you're going to create, you now have to start building your story. Now for a lot of students, and myself included, I'll admit that, writing is sometimes enjoyable and sometimes it's not. But if you're having to write, if you're being forced to write, that's never fun. But if you're writing because you enjoy something, or you're writing about something you're interested in, then it becomes fun. And that's what I want you to really think about while you work on this workshop here with me. Choose an option. Choose something that you enjoy. There's tons of myths and legends in our region that are tied to our region and all the various regions throughout the Quebec region. So choose something that you really want to know more about, and you would like to share that with others. You'd like to have other people to learn through reading your story. So the reason, though, that this is broken down into 2 parts, words with pictures, this is really important step of the, or piece of the puzzle, because if you start working on your book without a foundation in writing and what's expected, then you're going to be lost before you ever start, okay? And I'll go ahead and tell you, last workshop I noticed that a lot of students started off very strong with their writing. They put together their story in a way that the introduction was spot on. You led it into the middle part, or maybe where the conflict is in the story, and then it started to drop. And I don't really know if students tried to rush at the end to complete it and get it finished, or maybe they just didn't know how to end their story. But over and over this happened last workshop. So I'm going to try my best to go through this in a way that you can understand what we mean by putting together a proper story, okay? Now, one thing we need to pay attention to with this workshop is we're looking at, last time we had fiction and non-fiction, okay? That was the last workshop. This workshop we're doing more with biography, and then also with almost like a research, okay? Because you're going to have to do a little bit of this. So this was last time. You had any option under the sun that you wanted to create. You could write about anything that you could possibly come up with. That was fine. So now we're getting rid of this option altogether, all right? Now, myths and legends are fiction, of course, but we're focusing more on a biography and research in this aspect for the workshop. So that means no matter if you pick a leader or a legend, you're going to have to find out about those 2 things. You're going to have to do a little research. And with research, the best place to go with this is first starting online. Now, let's say you're choosing to do a leader. And I know everyone has been down to the park, and you've seen down at your park there in your county, you may have a gazebo out here, all right, and your gazebo, and there's walks going all around your park, and there's all these trees, right? And somewhere, I mean, there's a good chance of this anyway, but somewhere in this park, you probably have a statue or a plaque. And we'll put our statue back here, okay? So let's just pretend for a second that this is a statue back here. And let's say this man is holding a map here, and there's his leg. So I know that you've seen these plaques and different types of things that are talking about people that's made a difference in your community. Now, That's a great resource. Leaders are often recognized in various ways, and they're often, kind of respected in ways where plaques or maybe information about them, even centers, community centers, are named after certain leaders. But you don't always have to choose a leader or a topic for a leader that deals with really well-known people. Maybe it's someone who isn't recognized or immortalized with a statue. Maybe it's somebody who just made a difference maybe in your community. Think of the terrible tornadoes that passed through down in Syersville, Magoffin County a few years back. During that terrible tragedy, there were tons of people that stepped up to help others and service to others. Some of those people may have never been even recognized for what they've done, but maybe you know about it. Now, that's a wonderful topic for a leader. So it doesn't have to be someone who is really well known or has a lot of prestige or somebody that has a statue of them, but that's a good place to start. If you've no ideas whatsoever on who you could write about, but you want to choose a leader portion, look around your community. There's telltale signs all around, giving respect to people who's made a difference. Research is important. The same is true for the legend aspect too. Last time I talked about the devil dogs. Devil dogs is a legend in eastern Kentucky. These mythological type of big, large wolves and dogs that roam in the mountains, and they have these special abilities and they can disappear. They have these piercing red eyes and all this stuff. So these legends that exist, the best place to really start with those is asking senior members of your community. Now, we talked about this last time, but in terms of building your story, we need to talk about research again. It's very, very important, okay? I want to make sure everybody's clear on this too, that this workshop is being engaged by students in a broad range of grade levels. So there's elementary level students, middle school, and high school. When we start getting into this writing portion really deep and looking at the things that we need to pay attention to, I have a challenging task in front of me because I can't really make it too advanced for the younger students, but at the same time, I don't want to make it too basic for the high schoolers. So we're going to have to really kind of have a mid-range of a way to deliver this material, but at the same time, teachers, I can't stress how important it is and how valued you are in this process, because you're there, you're working with your students. So if you see a student who doesn't understand what a setting is or how to establish characters or what a plot is, maybe you can help them a little bit and walk them through that process. Some students are going to be able to take this and run with it with no problem. Others may have some challenges with it. So teachers, I appreciate you so much for your willingness to help and make this the best opportunity it can be for our students, because that's really what it's about, okay? So let's start out looking at a story. What is a story? How are you going to put your story together? So I'm going to write here at the top, building a story, okay? All right, so you're going to be writing. That's what we're going to be doing. Supposedly you've chose a leader or a legend. You know your format, you know what direction you're going to go. So now we're talking about writing. All right, so typically there are 3 parts to a story, okay? Number 1, you have your characters, right? Everybody knows what that is. A character are the people or the things that are making up the topic of your story. Characters can be, an animal, a made-up personality in a story. Lots of different options for that. So if we're doing a leader or a legend story, our character, no doubt for leaders, are going to be the people involved in the person's life or the person even you're writing about for leaders. For legends, the character could be the devil dog, and maybe there's a specific story that you can find about maybe a legend. Maybe the devil dog terrorized a family one night in eastern Kentucky, and so you may put their names in there or make up some names, okay? The second part of a story, now this is very generalized, is the setting. We all should know what a setting is. A setting is where your story takes place. Now, a setting has 2 parts to it. I don't want to overcomplicate this, but it's important to note this. You have a time for a setting, which is when it takes place. It could be in the future, the past, that kind of thing. Or you have a location. So those are the two parts of a setting. A location is where it takes place. Now I can already about tell for a setting, okay, we have a time and a place. But I can almost guarantee, if you follow the instructions with this workshop, that your time is going to, it could be anything, right? For legends, it might be someone that made a difference in the 1950s or in the 2000s or even in, maybe the 1890s. So it's going to be all over the place for time. But for place, this should be kind of assumed that you're going to be writing about something dealing with your region or your community. Now you can go out a little further. Let's say you live in Leslie County and you look up and you can't find legends, but just over in the other county there, just a short distance, there's this legend that's real well known, and you want to write about that. That's fine. Think of Jenny Wiley, the legend of Jenny Wiley. That's another great example. Okay. Now the third part of a story, and these are just, like I said, the very basic parts, is the plot. Okay, the plot. When we talk about plot, we're talking about the actions that take place in the story. We're talking about the events, what happens to the characters as they interact in their setting. Okay? So that's the three parts that we're looking for. The students that are going to be published at the end of this are going to understand what these three things are. Now, I understand for the younger students in elementary school, telling the story about a leader or a legend, and we start getting into this stuff, it's going to be a little, complicated, but just teachers work with them, get them just to tell a story, to formulate their story well, and we'll be okay. We're printing books across the board. Like last workshop, we had books, we're publishing books from elementary level students, middle school, and high school. So we're going to make sure those slots are available, that we have students represented from each type of grade level. Okay? All right, so building a story. We have our three parts: the character, the setting, and the plot. Now the plot makes up the body, really, of your work. For a leader, the plot could be, let's say, the floods. I think it was a 77 flood in Pike County. Massive flood came in. All right, we have our setting. We know the time, 1970s, Pike County. We have a character. Let's say a lady who lived on a creek, her creek was flooded, and her house was high enough up on the hill that she had dry land, and all of the community came to her home, and they stayed there until the waters receded. We have our characters. Okay, now the plot there. The plot's been answered for us. The plot is the flood came, families were in danger, they had to find safety, and someone stepped up and became a hero. That's the plot. The story will answer itself for you. It really will. When you start to research these things and look into these things more, a lot of these things are going to answer themselves for you. Okay, so everyone should have an understanding of the three parts of a story. I hope you're writing this down, some of you. All of you, actually, because you're going to need this later on. So let's talk a little bit now about using those three parts in terms of a leader. So you select the person that you're going to write about. Let's break this down like this. We're going to, up here so that everybody's following. So let's say you're going to write about a certain leader, okay? All right, so let's start with leader. All right, letter A. First thing you're going to do is select a person to write about, okay? All right, once you have that person, the second thing you're going to start to do is you're going to have to do some research. Collect the facts on them. Collect the facts. Know who, what, when, where, how, and why, and all that, okay? You have to be able to know this person and talk about their life or their event that they stand out in a way that makes it enjoyable for the reader when they read your story. The third thing is, while you're reading about this person and while you're researching this person, think about the things that are going to be enjoyable or interesting for others to learn about, okay? You think about the things that you would like to share pertaining to your person that you want others to know about. And put those things together in that way, and you should have the construction then to put into those three parts of your story. All right, so be kind of careful here to not get overwhelmed. I know this feels a little overwhelming. What does this have to do with art right now? I understand we're talking about writing a lot, but it's very important. The construction of the story is everything. Art is part of it. Art helps to act almost as if, like, if you watch a movie and you know there's a soundtrack to a movie playing in the background. Art acts a lot like a soundtrack when you read a picture book or a chapter book or graphic novel. Words in the story are so important. Without a solid story, it doesn't matter if you can draw like artists at Pixar or Disney, or your story is not going to work out as well as you hoped, okay? So when you put all these together in the terms of a legend and you start to research, it acts sort of the same way, okay? So for legends act a little differently though, because leaders, there's lots of information out there about leaders. You can find it everywhere. But the best place to start for your legends is ask. Go to seniors in your community, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, and ask them, do you know of any legends, superstitions, myths that exist or are related to our area? Collect those facts down. Write those facts down. Have everything listed. Keep a notepad. Constantly research your material. Go on the internet. Once they tell you about a certain myth or a legend, go out and find if there's any books available on that, any resources online available. Record your information down. The more information you have for leaders and legends, then the more quality of a work you're going to produce and the higher chances you are going to be becoming published. Okay? Now we want to understand something, that legends, really what we're talking about is myth. Now with myths, we work a lot in fiction, okay? Think of this. A myth is something like, you may ask, like a Native American have many stories on how the world was formed, why there's mountains, things like that. Myths exist to explain natural phenomenon a lot. And so in many cultures you'll find, when you go back to very, very early and ancient and early cultures, myths help to explain things that they couldn't explain with science at the time, okay? So when you're building your story and you're looking for a legend or a myth to write about, you may have to fill in the gaps a lot. With leaders, it's all concrete. With leaders, you have information there, you're researching and you're collecting information to talk about. With legends, you're going to have to try to piece things together. You may have to fill in things, so it becomes fiction, okay? Leaders will be nonfiction. So with myths, first thing, ask. Second thing, research. A lot of research in this, I know, but that's why it's important to pick something that you enjoy doing, okay? Research the topic. Look into the topic online. Find out maybe more about it through different sources. You're going to have to fill in the gaps too, okay? You're going to have to fill in the gaps with this a lot. And like I said, that's where your fiction is going to come into play, okay? So once you collect your information, you know what you're going to write about, you have everything together, and then when you tell your story, remember you're writing about something fiction anyway, so you may have to fill in those gaps. All right. Okay, I hope everybody's feeling okay. You're not feeling overwhelmed. I want you to remember this is going to be an enjoyable process. Hopefully it's enjoyable for you. That's the goal of this anyway, is to have a enjoyable process through this. I'm going to be posting resources to help you establish your characters, your setting, and your plot. And for the advanced level, for the students in high school and some of the more advanced grades, we're going to actually be putting more parts of a story on there, talking about things like conflict, your antagonist. We're also going to be looking at what we call rising action. So there's all these different things that make up a story. And I'll post those as resources on theholler.org. So you have to get online, go to theholler.org, it's your best friend. in terms of finding out resources and communicating with students that are also participating in this workshop. Okay, a few things that we want to remember from last time. Like I said, students started off very strong. Okay, they had a great idea for a story. They got really excited about their story, and then the next thing you know, the story drops off. Now, I'm not really sure why that happened. I tried to think about this. Why did the story just drop off all of a sudden? This student had a great idea, and then the next thing you know, it drops off completely. My theory is this. I think that maybe you started to rush towards the end of school, and you got a little overwhelmed maybe. Your story was almost finished, but you didn't have all the pieces together. All right, so for this workshop, I urge you early on, between now and next week, you get your idea for what it is you want to write about and start to do that research. It's really important, okay? Have everything together in terms of your notes, and then when you start to put this into the terms of a story and an idea, it should be fairly simple for you to collect your information that way, okay? But if you get overwhelmed with this and you wait to the last minute to decide what you're going to write about or what format you're going to do, then you're going to be very disappointed at the end. I want this competition to be, not really, I don't want to call it a competition, but I want this opportunity, because you see there's only a few number of slots that's going to be available for students to become published. I want this to be the most competitive workshop that will ever come, or more competitive than last time. It was hard last time. Students had created some amazing stuff last time, but I want this to be so competitive and so hard to judge that maybe they can't help but publish everybody's work. Okay? So with this, we're going to move forward now, start writing your story. We're going to be talking about drawing characters, basic drawing, so there'll be a basic drawing tutorial made available to follow along with their first part of writing with pictures. Collect your information. It's nice to have a notebook or a notepad that you work from, where all your information is collected and kept, because this is going to take a little bit of research. It is, but it's worth it. Make a story enjoyable that others want to read it, and when they read it, they're also informed. They're educated on what it is they're looking at and reading, okay? All right, so I think that just about covers everything this time. I would like to thank KVAC for sponsoring this, the Holler, of course, for always being so gracious to us. If you're interested in having us at your school to present the next, or one of these Mondays at your school live, please contact Kelly Thompson, let her know, and we'll try to set up coming out to your school and conducting a session from your school, okay? Just contact Kelly. Everyone should have her contact information. If you have any questions for me at all, the best place to ask those questions is go to theholler.org, and right there on the forum, you need to go ahead and ask your question, and I'll do my best to answer it and get resources available to you as soon as possible. Okay? Thank you all so much. Now, the writing process might be a little less entertaining than drawing, but it's so important, because if you don't have a solid foundation for your story, then what you have is just a lot of nice drawings. So please take this seriously. It's a great opportunity. It could potentially change your life even. So good luck to everybody out there, and remember, go to theholler.org and look for those resources soon, okay? Thanks, everybody.